Yo, what's good, people? Welcome to the channel where we talk about music licensing, music production, and music business. If you love any of the previously mentioned, be sure to subscribe so you can stay up to date on all my latest content and hit that bell icon so you know exactly when that new content drops. Shout out to everybody in the stream, man. Let me know where you guys are from. Let me know what you do. And yeah, I'm excited. We're back for another live Q&A, a podcast episode. I got another guest. Y'all know how we get down. We bring dope people on the podcast to help you guys out in your music careers and journeys and things like that. So I'm super excited. So let me know, man. Let me see who's in the building. I am testing something different out today with my audio too. So for those who don't know, I use like a solid state logic interface, the SSL2 Plus, and it has 4K, like this 4K mode. I usually don't use it unless I'm cutting vocals or bass or something like that. But I was just like, why not? Like, let's push this button and see how it sounds in the podcast. I don't know. It was just a random experiment. So I wanted to let you guys know that I'm doing that. So if it sounds a little different, that's probably what it is. Shout out to Freddie River Music in the building. I see you. So yeah, it's been a cool week. Nothing too crazy. I've been trying to catch up on briefs because I got tied down in a boatload of revisions the last couple weeks, but that finally slowed down, so I was able to kind of get back on track and knock out some some cool sports stuff. So that's happening, and I think I should be caught up with that stuff by the end of this week. And I'm still behind because I got other stuff that I kept pushing back. So hopefully we can get to it. But without further ado, I want to introduce my guest for today. Super dope musician. She went to Berkeley. Like, anybody who goes to Berkeley, I'm telling you, like, they're just dope, automatic. You get automatic dope points for going to Berkeley in my eyes. But shout out to Nicole Riolo. What's going on, Nicole? Tell the people, just introduce yourself. Let the people know who you are.
Sure. So, hey guys, my name is Nicole Riolo. I did go to Berkeley and I did, in fact, graduate. That's always like the ongoing joke while you're there is like, did you make it through? I was like, yeah, I did. Also, you sound great, by the way. I need
Thank
to
you.
learn a thing or two more about how to sound good on here. I mean, I'm using like rinky-dink little headphones and I'm using like the
It's
little mini mic, my
it's
headphone.
working. I got you though.
All
Like,
right.
any tips, or I got you.
I will. I'll definitely be asking. So yeah, so thanks for having me. We
Dope,
connected in
dope.
the last like month or so, which obviously I'm very glad that we connected through a mutual friend that also went to Berkeley and did not graduate from Berkeley.
But
Devon,
yeah, and he's killing it too. Like, he didn't even graduate, but he's
he
still
is.
killing
Yeah,
it.
no, he's
Yeah.
one of those people again. A lot of the people who didn't graduate from Berkeley, they did their own thing and they went with it and they ran with it. That was the thing. It wasn't that like if you graduated, you did well. It was also if you didn't graduate, it was because you were already ready to take on like bigger and better things, which
Right.
to each their own, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, went to Berkeley, knew I was going down the business route. I got in based on vocals, but I knew I was going to go down the business route. Didn't exactly know what that would look like, but I thought management originally. And I
Mm-hmm.
think to this day, there are definitely still qualities and characteristics within the management space that I've taken on in my daily life and where I'm going now.
Yeah.
Um, Taken, like I said, a couple of different facets of the industry. I've gone into management. I went into booking for a little bit. I did some PR. I did some graphic design work. Um, Everything also too with the marketing mindset behind it, while allowing an artist to stay authentic. I wanted to
Mm.
be behind an artist that I really believed in, but management didn't seem like the route. I still wanted a creative say to some degree while letting them be creative,
Mm-hmm.
which has led me into the sync and licensing space. I got introduced by going down the publishing route, which is a route didn't think I'd go down.
Mm-hmm.
Learned a ton, legally speaking, when it came to copyright, and how to properly set up a license. I worked both for indie as well as a more legacy catalog. So to see the differences between the two, and how to properly push those songs,
Mm-hmm.
the kind of rights you can fight for, the kind of negotiations that you can make.
Yeah.
So it's been a really interesting route. But like I said, this has allowed me to have a creative say while also an administrative background being extremely helpful. So,
Yeah. That's awesome. So like when you went to Berkeley, because I know I went to the Ohio State University, right? And there there was no like music business. Like there was like a music business class, but there was like you couldn't major in music business or management or production or anything like that. Did Berkeley have anything like that? Because you're a musician, singer as well, right? So like
yeah.
what was kind of your goal like going into it before you kind of went the management
Going
route?
down that route. Yeah. Like a lot of people, I thought I'm going to dual major as vocal performance and within music business, so that I can help out my own artistry and at least have my back. But very quickly on, I mean, listen, I still sing. It's still something I do
Mm-hmm.
in my spare time. I have my own little, very simple, but like recording equipment at home and a keyboard and stuff.
Yeah.
But I've realized it's something that it's a side passion for me that I don't need to personally be making money off of. It's something that I enjoy for myself. It doesn't have to
Mm-hmm.
be necessarily shared with others and or be made money off of, like I said, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
um, so I learned that very very early on. There were people who would do anything, and I wanted to be behind them, who I felt like it was worth it to be behind. So yeah.
Yeah. That you said something that's super powerful, and that's realizing just because you have a talent or skill, or just because you can play something or sing, doesn't necessarily mean like that is going to be the main thing that you're going to do or the main thing that's going to bring in income for you. And being able to
Yeah.
realize that and pivot and find your lane, I think is super crucial, because there's a lot of people, they want to be producers, they want to be the artist, the person in front, but it's like, yo, you could possibly be ignoring all these other things and skills and talents that you have that could take you into and bring you into the rooms that you would think
Yeah.
your singing would bring you into. So that's dope, that's super dope.
Yeah, and
um
even like in and of itself, a happiness that like, what are you getting out of it, and make sure that like you're holding truth to what you're doing.
yeah.
Is it something that's an ego filling thing, or is it be something that's your life's passion? You have to be doing this with your life. There's a difference between the two.
Yeah.
So finding that out pretty early on is helpful.
Love it. I love it. You mentioned earlier, and if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them. I'm just, running my mouth, but I'm curious about a lot. But you mentioned, with your experience in the sync space and working with both indie artists and, handling major catalogs and things like that, or legacy catalogs, like
Yeah.
you mentioned the differences between the both and working with both in the sync space. Like, what are some of the major differences you've noticed in doing that?
Sure. Um, Obviously, what comes with a more legacy catalog is legacy artists that might have more of a demand to be paid more for a particular placement,
Yeah.
as opposed to somebody who's, only has a fourth of the share on something. They might not have as much pull. Granted, there are definitely ways and things that you can negotiate, whether it's not going to be more pay for the lesser known writer that, let's say, you're representing.
Right.
You negotiate something something else, whether it's like, can their face be part of this brand? Can you help push them as a songwriter or as an artist themselves if they are also an artist? So you can negotiate other things. But really, when it comes down to it, it's a little bit of less money that for certain things, for certain media in particular, that you
Gotcha.
can negotiate for when it comes to a smaller catalog, a less known songwriter as opposed to a legacy catalog.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. And and I mean that's not necessarily a bad thing because I mean when you think less money in comparison to a massive popular catalog, like less
Right.
money for an independent artist could be game changing, for their career. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah. And
especially
it's
in this.
also very
Go ahead. I'm
particular
sorry.
on like the media. If it's an ad's still going to pay more. And actually, there's plenty of situations where they say we want a less known artist. There's a lot more out there who, when they're on the licensing or granted on the creative side, the songs that are being requested, sometimes they really are making a stand to find the lesser known artists and
Yep.
break them. A
Yep.
lot of people. So there is that. It's not just all about the legacy catalogs and the I know that song from the 80s and we have to have it. Like they want to break people.
Yeah. I attended the production music conference virtually this year, and
Right?
there were some licensing companies and agents, and they were talking about how and music supervisors and editors and stuff, and they were just talking about how pretty much they get this budget for the film, right? And they may have like a couple big songs that they just have to use, they want to use it, it makes the scene, right? So they'll make sure they can get those songs cleared and cut that out of the budget, and then like everything else, they're kind of spreading amongst production music and trailers and indie artists.
Yeah.
And it stretches the budget faster, and they love being able to be on the side of the indie artists and helping them gain exposure and things like that, and put money in their pocket so they can reinvest it
Yeah.
back into their careers. So we got a question from Charles Jefferson. What's up, Charles? His question is: I have full songs with lyrics. I am considered submitting. Oh, sorry about that. Submitting for sync licensing. Is the process the same as submitting beats or different? Um, I guess from my experience, it's been kind of the same, but I think the difference is in who you submit to. What do you think?
I was about to say who you submit to and again the type of media. Is
Mm,
it something that requires lyrics or is it a transitional thing that you're just using the beat for? I guess it really depends on like the person, but also the type of media. And when I
yeah,
say media, I mean like TV versus film versus ads versus trailers versus promo. That makes a difference too.
nice. Yeah, that's huge, and I think producers have an advantage. Like if you can produce and you can write and sing and or rap, like I feel like it just adds value to you as a creative, and just allows you to take major advantage of the opportunities that are out there.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, you're
what
not just like a triple threat, you're like a quadruple threat. If you can
yeah.
like add lyrics and melody and produce and maybe possibly slightly mix and master, like it's all of that, like you're a quadruple threat.
Yeah, exactly. So what was like your first initial experience in the sync space? Because I know like a lot of people get here different ways. What was your introduction?
Um, like I said, I worked for a small indie publisher for a bit. That really gave me my foot in the door. But they had had a sync and licensing team, a very small one, two people based out on the West Coast. They didn't have anybody here on the East Coast. So I initially was helping just obtain all the correct rights and put it into our back end so that everything, I say this often, but we had all our ducks in a row so that when an opportunity came up, we can easily put together playlists,
Mm,
and all the information is there. Those types of websites are obviously super helpful.
mm,
This isn't necessarily always attainable to a regular producer or songwriter, though there are plenty of websites that definitely they can check out in order to like have their ducks in a row and be able to pitch for themselves. But yeah, so I was really helping with that one-off opportunities here and there. I think a lot of our placements were in promo a lot in sports related things, promo and sports. Um, so that company at the time was more pop, hip hop leaning as well. We had had a lot of producers on there that were horn players, really well known horn players that have gotten into some really big songs and shares. Yeah, like Little Nas X songs. We had, you know, some of the biggest songs of his in the last 2 years. Industry Baby, like that was major. That was one of the major
Yeah.
things that I'd helped out on. So it's been fun to see that.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was kind of the start.
I've heard that song on so many so many syncs.
I
And
mean,
it's
it's
crazy.
great. It's not even just catchy, it's past catchy. And
Yeah.
the horn loop in it has so much to do with that.
Yeah.
So it's pretty phenomenal to see how that's just blown up, just based simply on that. And then the video is another thing altogether and who he is. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. The horn, like as soon as you hear that horn line, you know immediately like this is that joint. Like you know it. So much energy
Yeah.
in that. You mentioned, I guess the stuff on the back end, the admin
Yeah.
stuff that you kind of had to take care of to make sure everything was, all the ducks were lined up. Like, what are some of those things so that indie artists and producers can kind of know, like, what you see on that side? Because, we're so focused on the creative and we send it off and then that's it. But, like, what are some of the things that could really help you all? Like, if we're submitting music, what makes your life easier on that side?
Sure. Making sure if it's not, I mean, I hope that it's registered on your behalf or whoever the writer is.
Mm,
But you want to make sure it's just even an email confirmation that you have everybody's splits
mm,
negotiated and written out clearly so that when it does come time to license something out, you're not still trying to figure out and piece together who has this share, who has that share. Um, if you're by yourself, great. I mean, just make sure it's registered properly. All your publishing information is up on PRO sites, so that can also be double checked. But those types of websites, the back ends, what I would help coordinate was making sure that like not only the shares, but the publisher name,
mm.
whether they were adminned by a major or not, just like having that all thrown in there. Their name spelled correctly. I mean, the differentiations between spelling your name correctly in everyday life versus how it is on like PRO sites.
Right.
Those little things, they get lost in the weeds. So making sure there's consistency there. But I mean, like I said, there's if I could plug like a website that a lot of people could use is Disco, the Disco
Yeah.
platform.
Love it.
This is really great for producers and songwriters to get in front of music supervisors and agencies that are using that website. I mean, it's becoming more and more popular. Very easy for you to plug stuff in. I don't, off the top of my head, know how much it costs monthly,
It's
but it
not
is
bad.
worth definitely like checking out for people. Yeah,
It is.
I've
Like
only known it from like a publisher standpoint.
yeah, I think like starting out, I think it may be around 10 or $15. I think I'm on like the 15 or $20 a month, but it's not bad. I guess depending on where you are, but
Yeah,
for the sake of like creating custom playlists and sharing them out and being able to track stats and keep everything organized, like
yeah,
I sent you a disco link to to share
yeah,
some music, and like literally it'll have wave files. If you have stems, you can include those. They can
yep.
download it however they want. If they just want the MP3, they can download that. If they want the wave, boom, they got all the writers info. It just makes everybody's life easy.
And then
um
you could even tag it by like descriptor words. Those go way further than you think.
yeah.
Again, I was working with a lot of songs at once. So if I was putting together a playlist with certain songs, I'd want to just like a quick search of upbeat, horn, whatever,
Yeah.
and just pull that based on the tags that I had like literally tagged to that work.
Nice.
Yeah, utilizing that kind of stuff is super helpful.
Yep. Indeed. We got one from Justin Artis. What's good? He says, I actually do everything creative and A&R. I think my next step is music supervision. Nicole, did you need help? Tips on getting in with only creative sync experience. It's a good question.
Tips in getting in with only creative sync experience, um, coming from like an A&R, I guess, standpoint from his end, I believe is what
Yeah.
I'm reading.
Yeah, I guess trying to
Um,
trying to get into. Supervision. Have you done any supervision stuff, or just more so like the management and
Just the management.
everything?
I'm just getting into the weeds a little bit
Okay.
with music supervision. Not personally, but starting to work with an agency that has music supervision
Okay.
division. Um, Much like A&R stuff, though, it's all about your relationships.
Yeah.
Like who are you connecting with and who needs help on what film or um, what show or a trailer or anything like that. Like it's all about the relationships you're creating. So if you're already representing your, if it is in case, this person himself that he is representing, um, you already have half of it down of naturally being able to create relationships because it's a lot about that. And just like being on the ground as to like who's making what. If it's ads that you're more interested in, then maybe keeping tabs on like keeping up on Ad Weekly, seeing what kind of new trends are happening, as
Yeah.
opposed to like film directors that you maybe should be following or people who are starting documentaries. So maybe dependent too, again, a little bit on the media that you're trying to push yourself into, or artist or said self.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I think have you ever heard of iSpot.tv?
Yeah, yeah.
Another good resource for like checking out ads and stuff like that. So in your experience, since you've worked on a lot of like ad and promo stuff, like have you noticed any trends, in the past year or so in that space, like whether it's sonically, lyrically, like are there any trends that you've noticed that are, it's just working well in that space?
There are definitely trends that come back around. Like right now, I know people are embarking, believe it or not, because it's only October, but like Super Bowl stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
Like the thought of Super Bowl stuff really dominates in the ad and promo space. And same for like the holiday times. That's
yeah,
already passed though. Things
yeah,
things for that have been done since the summer. I mean,
yeah,
searches for that have started in May and have ended in maybe July, the latest. Like it's done.
yeah,
So it's interesting to see the like patterns and stuff. Um, Other than that, this year, believe it or not, to some degree or another, sometimes politics do kind of dip into some ad spaces or the demographic. So they
hmm,
want to push either certain themes um, for that product, and then like you're always going to have your upbeat, quirky. I feel like has become more of a thing, and
yeah,
quirky can range. It could be um, like an old fashioned vintagey quirky sound,
yeah,
or it could be more of a pop and there's just like something in there that's kind of like kitschy
yeah,
and like cute in there. Or just like a quirky rhythmic thing that you hear in the background or something they're saying that's a little like that's interesting. We're also entering a time where like I'm excited. We're becoming more inclusive to different types of cultural sounds.
hmm,
A lot of people trying to push a lot more different sounds from all over the world,
yeah,
whether that is like lyrics and actual language, or it's something that's indicative of a completely different culture
yeah,
that we're starting to bring in. So that's been cool to see.
yeah,
And being authentic with it too. Like if an
yeah,
agency is asking for a particular sound, they want it to be represented by an artist from that with that background.
yeah.
And if we don't have that, then we pass on that. But like, I think that's a testament to those kinds of agencies that are trying to be really authentic. Even if they do love those types of sounds, they're like, we also want those artists to be given credit.
Yeah, I love that. I just had a brief to come in like a week or so ago, and it's a show. It's a reality show. It's based in Thailand. Huge franchise. But and I think they've done some another Dubai. They have one in Dubai too.
Okay.
But yeah, and it was the same thing. They was just like, yo, like we want like the stuff that you hear on reality TV, but since it's based in Thailand, obviously we want some authentic Thai instruments and things like that.
Yeah.
But they was just like it has to has to sound real. Like we don't want to offend anybody with some
Yeah.
some you just wanted to be right. You wanted to be done right. So that's interesting that you said that. And then maybe a month or so back, I seen a brief, and they wanted I'm a piano, or I'm a piano music, however you want to pronounce it. But it's like a genre from Africa, and I was able to do some stuff for that, and it was super dope. Like that. This is one thing I love about Sync, is that it just allows you to explore so many different genres and styles of music.
Yeah.
Because they're requesting this stuff, and they want so many different vibes from different cultures and things like that. So it's really cool to be able to work on all this stuff. That's dope. If you
Yeah.
guys have questions for the new people joining the stream, welcome. It's a live Q&A. We're talking with Nicole Riolo about sync and music business and all of that dope stuff. So if you have any questions, drop them in the chat, and I'll get through them, and we'll answer as many as we can. So yeah, super dope. And you also mentioned, I had somebody reach out, and they were like, "Yo, like I got this Christmas record, should I submit it?" I'm like, "Yo, we've been done with that stuff. Like, it happens so quick, and
Yeah.
you have to understand the timeline of things in sync. It's like the Christmas stuff, what you said back, it was like May, it was like summertime. They're like
Yeah.
in post production, like when it's hot outside. So literally, like, we're in the studios in 80, 90-degree weather talking about jingle bells and
Yep.
snowflakes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But the good thing is that time will come back around again. So
Exactly.
as long as that music that this person may have isn't just for this Christmas time or this holiday year, which
Hmm.
whatever, they can always submit it for next year. It's going to come
Every
back.
year.
Same thing with the trailerized, sports related pushed promo things. Like they're not going to stop. They
Yep.
might change a little bit with some themes,
Hmm.
but like they're still going to want like a triumphant, victorious, overcoming lyric content or feel to it. Like that's
Yep.
not going to change.
Yep. Exactly. Yep. We got one from Five Hands. He says, "Before I start pitching my music to music libraries, should I register my demo tracks with my pro? In general, should I register all tracks with my pro before submitting?" What's your take on that?
I I know that certain companies have different, and I don't necessarily know on libraries to my full knowledge because again, I've only really worked with publishers.
Mm,
Um, because I think some may make it so that they don't want you to, or you have to like sign over certain rights. I still say you just cover yourself and you register everything. You should be
yeah,
registering everything. It should all be under your name personally.
yeah,
Um, I don't know what kind of deals they then negotiate so that it would be beneficial for you not to register.
yeah.
But yeah, what's your experience with that if you have had that?
Yeah, in regards to, it's always like it depends situation. So in regards
Yeah.
to libraries, and when I say it depends, it's always registered. It's just who registers it, right? So
Mm,
with libraries, typically they do that on your behalf. So you know, you send them tracks. They say, "Hey, we like these tracks. We want to sign them." You sign the deal, and then they go and register that track with your, respective PRO. So you'll be listed as the writer slash composer. You get your writer share, and then they would take the publisher's share of royalties. So they register it for you, but it's always safe to double check and make sure that's even done right, because I've had situations where the publisher added the wrong person to the name, or the wrong
yeah.
co-writer, or you know what I mean. So you kind of have to say, hey, you did this wrong. Can you
Yeah,
fix it?
for yourself. If you're going to have a library do that on your behalf, or if you have a publisher or whomever else, like make sure you're educated on it. Don't just like walk. It's like anything else when it comes to making a deal with somebody. Like ask the questions, be a little pushy,
Yep.
do the research, and consistently, like you said, like check up. Oh my God, that wasn't registered correctly. We need that to get rerouted, or that name needs to change, or that's a completely different writer, even though it's somewhat spelt the exact same way. I mean, like those things happen.
Yep.
So it's definitely good to advocate for yourself as the creative, not just relying on them. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned that. Like, be a little pushy, and bring up the tough questions, because I mean, listen, this is your intellectual property. At the end of the day, this is your career, and you can't be scared to miss out on an opportunity because you brought up an issue that that needs to be resolved. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? That's important. Um, So we got another one from Tom Adams Music. He says, I'm always concerned with metadata for my tracks. How do you properly add the data so the tunes get recognized? I know we mentioned disco on adding it. What are some key metadata points that you find are super important? It's super crucial, whether it's
For one, like we said,
key.
like the names of the people themselves. Um, I mean, also, when you compare to what might be written on Spotify versus what's written on a PRO site, like again, I said it before, but like advocating for yourself so that the names are spelled correctly. Um, that's the biggest thing because shares are on there. A lot of the times before I would put them into a disco or a back end system,
Okay.
um, I use iTunes, believe it or not, to just really tag the metadata because some of these sites don't tag the metadata within the MP3. You have to like do it elsewhere.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, like I said, making sure the names are right, um, the title, the album itself that it's on, whether it's a single as the
Yep.
album or it's on like an EP, that being spelled correctly, the artist name. The year is also super helpful. It becomes useful even when it comes for pitching purposes if they want a song released between a certain amount of years. You don't have to get it down to the month, although
Yep.
you should have date of creation for your own self.
Yeah.
As a creative, you should know when you created that piece of work because once again, as intellectual property speaking, you need to have proof that this was created by you on said date. Let's say, God forbid, it was manipulated by somebody else down the line or sampled for something or whatever, and they can't trace it back.
Yeah.
You have proof, date of creation for yourself.
Gotcha.
But yeah, the year itself too is helpful. For the names are the biggest thing. Genre
Yeah.
too. I mean, I tag the genres, um, and then once it's usually on the pitching platform, that's when I go and I tag the descriptive words.
Gotcha.
That's
Nice.
yeah,
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 that's good. Important stuff. Because you want your music to be found. Um,
yeah.
so like, what are some issues you've run into in sync on whether it's management, publishing, whatever? Like, what are some horror stories? I'm curious.
Um, Particular genres. Again, I know I feel like I keep repeating the same thing, but not having it pre-negotiated in advance who has what shares.
Okay.
That at
Yeah.
the end of the day is what's stopping anybody from getting any kind of money or coming to an agreement for a license
Yep.
because you don't know who has what amount of shares. Like, then who's going to take the bulk of it when, the thing lands and money is being paid out and yet the splits aren't like decided upon. That needs to be really like precedent and you need to have an open still a working relationship with your co-writers for that's important and there
Yep.
definitely I've worked with songwriters who may also be the artist and they had some falling out with so and they have no communication. Like, who can we contact? Do we have anybody on our system that we know is the manager that we can contact, or that person themselves if they aren't with somebody with a team of people, it's just them. What's their contact information? Do we have their phone number, email? um, Making sure that stream of communication is always open.
Yeah, and I think that's worth repeating a million times because, man, like I don't know. Like you want people to understand that point. As simple as it may seem, like that stops so many things from happening. I know
Yeah.
I have a music supervisor buddy of mine, or he did music supervision. He's actually the one that got me introduced to sync back in college. But he was telling me a story. He had an opportunity. He was working on a TV show, or it was a show or an ad or promo or something. Anyways, it was a 30K placement up front, and they had the song, like they had it, like they were like, we want to use this.
Yeah.
Here's the paperwork. We need all the writers involved to sign. And I guess the artist or the writer didn't have contact info for the producer,
Yeah.
and just missed
Yeah.
out. And they go on to the next. Like they're not gonna like sit and be like, okay, well let's figure it out. Like let's see if we could find the producer. No, like they're gonna move on, find something else to replace it, and you just missed out on the opportunity.
Yeah, yeah, especially when that company is so much so trying to vouch for you, whether it's the agency that wants that music or like your administrative, your team or whomever is really trying to push that for you. Like just give the contact information up front. If it's not somebody that you have a good enough relationship with, say, here's who you can contact. I know that you can handle it with because I'm not on good terms with them. It needs to be. It's always an awkward conversation. I mean, this was like I had classes on this on having conversations with what are your friends in a recording setting.
Yeah.
You feel awkward to kind of make waves and be like, let's just get it out of the way. Who had what shares on this? Like, but as long as you approach it with, listen, this is just in case, not even just in case, this is with the hopes that there is the possibility that this can land somewhere. I want to make sure all of us are covered and
Yep.
we get the credit we deserve. That's more what it is. It's not saying I want give me more, give me that. It's about all coming to an agreement on what you've created here
Yep.
and just having that in writing and honoring it.
Yep. That's it, and ingrain it into, it being a part of your process. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um, it's a conversation that has to have, because there's business surrounding this, and it makes everything else easier moving forward. Because when a situation
exactly.
comes up, and I know you've seen them as well. I've seen them, where an opportunity comes up, it involves money. There was no split sheet signed. People get amnesia. We're going back and forth saying, no, we said this amount. No, it was this
Yeah,
percentage, and then nothing ever happens with it. It just sits there.
yeah, yeah. And it's not to say too, I don't want to make people think that they shouldn't create with their friends and with other people. No, like create with other people.
Yeah.
It's just like also and have a great time doing it and have fun and make a beautiful thing together, but also just be respectful of everybody there and just like get it out of the way either by the end of the day or the beginning of the day.
Yeah.
Who has what? Let's just kind of come to the agreement now. You put in this much so that it doesn't come time 2, 3 years, 4, 5 years later
Yeah.
you never discussed it, and now it's being offered to be the trailer of a new HBO show that's going to blow you guys up. I don't know.
Facts.
Like,
Yeah. Yep. And even in major situations, like, listen, man, like a lot of the writers and producers and artists you look up to, like, don't be afraid to bring up the conversations, because some of them they won't bring it up, and sometimes
yeah,
you may have to be that person that new guy in the corner to bring, be like, yo, can we get these splits knocked out real quick before I leave the
yeah,
studio.
exactly.
So yeah, we got let's see, a couple questions. Isaiah Witherspoon, should we bounce and submit only AIFF files and add metadata to that file as well? Hope this makes sense. If I'm not mistaken, AIFF files hold metadata. WAV files don't. I could be wrong, but if I'm not mistaken, I think AIFF transfers over. So if you send to someone else and they
Hmm.
pull it up in their computer, I think it stays. But
As an AIFF.
yeah, but
Yeah.
I think it like depends on who you're submitting to as well, because some companies, they may prefer Wave. So I don't know.
They may prefer Wave. It's funny. Yeah, I always would do all three.
Hmm.
Um, Correct me if I'm wrong, but going from Wave, then you can at least come down to an MP3 and an AIFF file.
Hmm.
So might as well have all of them if you can. Sometimes those are very large files.
Yeah.
So obviously the MP3 being the smallest, that is easier to send around, high quality MP3. But if you have the capability of having all three, have all three handy.
Yeah.
That's how at least I would tag my things with all three, or at least MP3 and AIFF, if not
Yeah.
Wave.
Yeah. I mean, you can't go wrong if you're
Yeah,
prepared for anything.
right.
So yeah, that's good. Lamar Webster says, is the IPI number only assigned by your pro on an actual released beat or track?
It
No.
shouldn't just be on a released track.
Okay.
That'll always be, I believe, with your name, not just the song coding itself. That should
Gotcha.
always stay with your name. I think there might be then another one that's just to that song. I
The
don't
work
believe that just
number.
has to be for released stuff. That's just as long as it's registered. But then obviously, like your name itself holds a totally different number. Yeah,
Yep. Yeah. I think like each individual like work, it has like a work number or something. It
yeah,
may vary. I don't know if they call it different things amongst the different pros, but it's like you get the work number for each work, and then your IPI slash CAE number is like kind of like your ID number for
yeah,
that pro.
yeah.
And then there's a I think this confuses people sometimes with the PROs. There's like a there's the IPI number, and then there's like a member number depending on which pro you're
Yes,
with. There's two different numbers. So like
yeah,
if a publisher or like a licensing company is asking you for the IPI CAE number, it's not your member number. It's actual IPI slash CAE number.
yes,
Just a
yes.
heads up.
Yep,
Um,
correct.
have you seen that like messed up a lot, like on the admin
Well,
side of things?
again, messed up and like sometimes not for different songs, but for different artists that might have the exact same name as you,
Mm,
or writer that has the exact same name as you, and we're putting it in like I want to know both the songwriter and their IPI or ISRC, their number. I need it up front to be registered properly, and that we can then make sure that it's divided amongst the right people.
yeah.
You know.
Uh, you brought up ISRC number. Can you talk about that? Because I've seen people ask questions about it. If it's needed, like what is it for? Can you talk about that for a little bit?
Sure. So I believe I'm trying to think a little bit more. I know it's international to some degree, but it's to the individual song itself. Um, and I want to say that this is also populated within the PROs. This isn't something that like you create yourself. It's populated and then it's tagged to that individual song, but it's a number that's important that'll carry over and be able to be registered and connected to you as a songwriter.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So it's like something like another data point to be able to trace back to
Yeah.
you and that specific song, so that if there is
Right.
some confusion, like say you got somebody, I don't know, misspelled their name or mistyped the IPI number.
Misspelled your name,
It,
a similar name to yours, maybe the exact same name if you have a name that's similar to somebody else's.
mm-hmm,
That happens.
that makes sense. Super dope. Um, wow. So you've done a lot in this space. You've seen different perspectives because you're a creative as well. Man, like so what's up now? Like what's current? What have you been working on now? And what's some cool things on the table for you?
As always, I'm constantly going to shows. I live in Manhattan.
Nice.
So the biggest thing about living here is the fact that I go to shows. It's about being close to work, but
Mm,
also that I can support artists that are coming through and that are both my friends and artists that I follow. But keeping those networks that I've started since I've been here as
yeah.
strong as ever,
Yeah.
making sure I make the time to meet up with those people. Currently, I also work in a studio. That's where I am at the moment,
Okay.
and I help with events, which soon, or we'd like to outreach to more people to just to come use the space as obviously a to work in, but to hang out in the hangout
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
And I said it earlier when it comes to songwriting, and I said it earlier about the A&R question. So much of this industry, as is a lot of industries, is about yes, who you know,
Yep.
but also like the genuine relationships that you've created and you've been able to maintain. So I very much so advocate for being keeping up those relationships. And if it means working in a space that cultivates that, then I want to be part of something like that.
Yeah.
So that's currently what I'm doing and exploring more within the creative side. I've had some experience now in licensing and on the publishing side and copyright and the registration. So now I'm exploring some opportunities to be more creative and be more front facing when it comes to working with particularly ad agencies, what their needs are, and where can we go to find that music.
Yeah.
Somewhat acting as a music supervisor, but more maintaining the relationships with maybe the hopes of of exploring music supervision. I'd love to be able to work with literally hands on with a musician, songwriter, producer,
Yeah.
and an agency of sorts, and make something with them and be that middleman. That's what a music supervisor advisor is they're the middleman and they're the one with the ideas that can help with what music to be placed where.
Yeah.
So
That's
that's
awesome.
that's what I'm working for right now. Yeah,
Yeah.
working towards.
I love it. I feel like the best person to be in your corner is someone like you who loves music, who's creative herself, and I feel like those are the best people you can have in your corner, advocating for you and helping, push things forward for your career. So that's super dope that you're doing that. Got another question from Rashida Davis. What's up, Rashida? Says, what kind of contract is drawn up when you're actually working with a film producer who needs music from you directly? This means that a music library is not needed. How does this work? Is this a work for hire?
It doesn't necessarily have to be a work for hire.
Okay.
Depending on the contract or depending on who you're working with, it sounds like if this is a real situation, you don't have a middleman, as in a music supervisor that may be advocating for you directly with the director. But you have every right to set up a contract that's not just a work for hire, um, with this particular placement in this film. What is it? Is it a scene? Is it a trailer? Is it part of like the end credits? Like those are questions, and to make sure that that's cleared up. How many times is it being used?
Yeah.
Getting all the terms down so that you could say, all right, now let's put together a contract. But it definitely does not just have to be a work for hire and a one-time fee paid off.
Yeah. I think the cool thing too about that, being directly, I feel like you have a little bit more flexibility, because now you can have that conversation with them and kind of figure out, the kind of terms that you can create,
Yeah.
so that you can just kind of build whatever works for both parties. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
So
if
that's
if it is a music supervisor that they're working with directly, you could
mhm,
ask them like, is it just a work for hire situation, or can we strike up a deal of some sort that I can have, more, can you get royalties on this, not just a one-time paid off thing, like something you've registered and you've worked hard on. I'd push for a little bit and ask how the deals are being set up for that particular placement.
yeah, that's dope. And then yep, pull in a entertainment attorney
Yeah.
to get everything typed up and sent off.
Yeah.
So hopefully that works out for you, Rashida. If that's I don't know if that's like a what do you call it? What do you call it? I forget. Um, I can't remember the word completely. But if it's a real or like what if this
A pipe
happened?
dream kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Not even a
So
pipe dream. It's
not a
not attainable. I mean, by all means, it is. I don't mean it like that. But like, yeah,
uh,
if it's an actual real thing or like a hypothetical
hypothetical.
situation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Super dope. You mentioned networking, and I was laughing because I was thinking back. My tennis coach back in high school, he used to always say, "It's not what you know, it's who you know." We used to laugh at him like, "Why does he always say that?"
Yeah.
Now I get it. But you mentioned networking, like how much of like your network has been built more so across with like the people that like I guess at the same level as you will versus like people who may be
Above.
above like how like what's the I guess the percentage of that for you.
It's funny because I thought more. I didn't think as laterally at my level to be connecting with, or initially, because you're always like, I want to work with that big company, so that means I have to reach out to like the director or the president of, and it's like, First off, it's out of reach. But second, why not pick the brain and or get to know the person who's at a particular level that you'll be at the same level with? Because you never know how much they're going to climb, and you might get along with them. They might be a lifelong friend. What company they might start down the line. So it's little
Exactly.
things like that. So I'd say 75% of my relationships are at a lateral at the same level as me. They're good friends. I could have both a serious business talk with them and I can go see a concert with them and stay out till 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
I want those relationships. I want the lifelong relationships. That's why I try to stay away from the word networking,
Yeah.
um,
It just
because it seems so ingenuine.
it makes the whole situation awkward. Like you go to a
Yeah.
networking event, you're like forced in this networking situation. You feel like you have to like. It's just weird, man. It's
Yeah,
weird.
you got to walk away with like a certain amount of people that like you got their information so that you can like make sure you send your music with them. But make friends.
Yeah.
Make friends. It's so simple and it's so much easier than we're even aware and that we give ourselves credit for. Like if
Yep.
you have friends and you have some good quality friends, think about the things that you've bonded with them over, and you could probably just as easily bond with that over people that are within your network. Take them out for coffee. Just get to know people.
Yep.
We all just we're human here, so it's so much simpler than we give ourselves credit for.
Facts.
And also admiring people's work. I mean, like I've been really, moved by somebody's work that works on documentaries, and I've just reached out to them and been like, hey, I loved the thing you worked on. To my knowledge, I think you're in the area, would love to get coffee. It's as simple as that.
Yep.
And then making friends with them and being like, what are you working on, and what kind of sounds do you need, and also I'm going to this show next Wednesday, you're welcome to come with. That's
Oh,
been
sweet.
most of my friendships,
Yeah, and
you know.
that's I feel like that's the gym. That's the whole play. That's the game, right? Right. There's just like being a genuine person and connecting with people even outside of like your career and like what you do. I remember I was at
Yeah.
an event and everybody was at the table like talking about fitness and like you don't want to be that annoying person where everybody the conversation is fitness and you come in, no, listen to this demo, like it's great, you would love it.
Yeah.
Like don't do that. Like talk about fitness too, you know what I mean? Like join the conversation that's
Or
already
like a
being had.
playlist that like you're listening to when you work out. I can go down on a fitness rant. Believe you me, that's
Yeah,
that's another thing that down the line. My pipe dream is to work to some degree with like the neurological benefits and the psychological and the therapeutic
that's awesome.
benefits to music on like on a movement level, on like whether you're playing, whether you're creating and you're not good at it and you're dancing and you're drumming,
Yeah,
good or bad, they're just like the benefits of music. But that's just
that's dope.
down the line. It's yeah.
Yeah, that's huge. I'm glad you said that. And yeah, people like to work with people that they like and you know that they have a good time with. So that's dope. Speaking of like music and just like the neurological thing, I was reading interesting stuff when we had our first son and like I started like I put headphones like on my wife's stomach and everything. Like we started
Yeah.
playing music because it actually like has benefits. It's just like for their brain development and things like that. Like when they listen to it during that, you know, those 9 or so months, um,
Yeah.
it's really interesting. It's some powerful stuff for sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I have nieces and nephews, and to see the way in which they connect with music,
Hmm.
um, and to some degree also how some of them are definitely tone deaf, and who maybe has a musical gene over the other, and who moves to things differently. Like that's been really cool. But music is very prevalent, obviously, in my life, and like my nieces and nephews as I'm just like seeing them grow. Yeah, no,
Yep.
it's really interesting on a developmental level. And as I keep saying, on a therapeutic level. A lot of people, when they talk about music therapy, they
Hmm.
talk about it on a very severe level, as in
Hmm.
like traumatic events. A lot of it's geared towards the elderly and children.
Hmm.
Uh, but if we're going to be talking in the last few years more and more about like mental health crisis and everything,
Yeah.
I think music should be pushed more within that discussion. I think we're missing something here that could really be tapped into.
Yeah.
But
That's
yeah,
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be super cool to see that, because you know, I mean, different styles of music. You know, even going from, you know, a major chord progression to a minor chord progression, like you feel different. You feel different emotions and things like that depending on the type of chords that's being played or whatever. So that would be cool to see music kind of play a huge role into, you know, mental health and you know, and kind of being a solution in that space. That would be super
Yeah.
interesting.
We'll see down the line. And just playing it too. Listening, one thing, and drumming. I mean, I say it all the time. I have a friend who's a lawyer and he goes to drum circles.
Yeah,
He's not even necessarily good or bad. I have actually no idea, but it's something where it's expressive and it's release. Like a lot of people look at working out. Again, another thing that music is incorporated within.
yeah,
So
yeah,
we shall see down the
yep.
line. Something I read about, and yeah.
Yeah, music is everywhere. You can't get away from it.
Nah,
It's
and
crazy.
it's great. I'm not complaining. That's why
Yep.
I never left this industry. It's a calling that I'm still here. It's
I
not my
get
own
it.
music. That's totally fine.
Yeah,
I love what I'm in.
I love
But
that. I
yeah,
love that. Dope.
yeah.
Listen, Nicole, I don't want to hold you. I appreciate you coming and just chopping it up with us and answering some questions and sharing your experience. Let the people know before you go where they can find you, where they can learn more about you, what you have going on, and whatever else you want to share.
Sure. I'm not big on putting a lot of like opinions out into the open. I'm not a big Twitter user. I'm the biggest on my Instagram, I suppose.
Yeah.
Uh, Sometimes I share a little bit more about my music, but it's so you could follow me there. My handle is within my name underneath, Nicole underscore Riolo. A lot of people call me just by my last name, but I don't obviously just like leave it as that. But yeah, Riolo. And so yeah, you can follow me on there. But otherwise, thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun. I love just
Uh,
talking music and answering questions and being as big of a help to anybody that I can. This is a lot of fun. So thank you.
no problem. Much appreciated.
Yeah.
And shout out to everybody in the stream. Thank you guys for joining. Hopefully, this was helpful. And yeah, we're going to catch you guys on the next one. Thank you again, Nicole. We will be in
Yeah.
touch. And I'll catch y'all on the next one. Peace.